What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, it's Friday, October 13th, Friday the 13th. We're going to go over all of the final practice reports that you guys need, get you ready for the weekend. I'm going to be doing a live stream Sunday morning, live 10:30 a.m. Central Time. That's an hour and a half before the first kickoffs. If you guys want to hang out and get your inactives, your actives, your start sit questions in, I will be available at that time. And then tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I'm hanging out with my friend Jesse. We're going to go over our player prop program where we hang out for an hour and just look at the DraftKings prop bets. But let's get right into the video here. I'm going to go through each team's practice reports and let you guys know what's going on here. Starting with the Arizona Cardinals, it looks like a safety's out here. Otherwise, everything looks pretty good here. We got some full practices from the offensive lineman, Keontae Ingram, who's missed the last couple games with a neck injury. He was limited Wednesday, Thursday, full practice today. He's going to play, and we're very curious about this because we want to see how Ingram and DeMercado work in unison here. I still think DeMercado is the guy that I would prefer to start this weekend as my RB2. I think he's the kind of the passing third down back, so he has that role, and we'll see how the carries get split up. Marquise Brown was missing practice on Wednesday with an illness, but he's limited. He should be fine. Otherwise, nobody else really for fantasy football that we need to take note of. So the Cardinals, we're watching for Marquise, but he should be fine. Otherwise, pretty good health here for Arizona. The Falcons look really healthy. They got nobody here. I did see Jonnu Smith popped up on the injury report on Wednesday, limited, but Friday, he's good to go. It looks like he's going to play. Nobody else is really an issue here. So Atlanta, good health, good to go. You're starting Bijan, maybe Drake London, and Jonnu and Pitts, man, both deserve to be starting. The Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be in the London game this weekend to start the Sunday off. They ruled out linebacker here. Nothing for fantasy that concerns me, though, because they got everybody practicing in full. So Odell Beckham, good to go. Keaton Mitchell, I'm excited to see his debut. He's still on IR, but I expect him, when he's healthy, to be the number 3 back behind, of course, Justice Hill and Gus Edwards. So he's still a stash for me. If you guys can get him and hold on to him, babysit him for the weekend, maybe he plays and he makes some pop plays. Could be a guy that gets more work going forward, but overall good news for Baltimore. Looking at Buffalo, now they play Sunday Night Football here. Nobody's been ruled out. For fantasy, we're curious about the tight ends. Both Kincaid and Knox are listed as questionable. They got limited practices Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So kind of on track to play. We got to see about Kincaid. He is going through concussion protocol still. So if you guys are holding out for a tight end, continue to watch this one. If Kincaid's out, I'm going to say Knox is probably a streaming tight end option for you. Otherwise, if both play, we just don't really love both when they're both in there because they kind of eat into each other's workload. So Buffalo, man, they're gonna get a Giants team that when we get to the report, we'll see. But the Giants are reeling right now with injuries. Carolina, they ruled a couple guys out. So for fantasy, Miles Sanders got ruled out. We've been kind of ahead of this one. He didn't practice all week. We told you to get Chuba Hubbard, and it looks like Chuba Hubbard's going to be the starting back this weekend. And they don't really have a number 2 back that's going to steal touches. They do have a kind of a third down back there, but I think it's Chuba's backfield. It's going to get upwards of 15 touches, maybe even more. Otherwise, yeah, a lot of guys dinged up here for Carolina. They ruled out a starting guard, a safety, a tight end, and another safety here. So it looks like Miami is going to have their way with the Carolina Panthers. Otherwise, Adam Thielen, good to go. Ian Thomas, whatever. Sullivan, whatever. Fantasy-wise, it looks good. So I think you're starting Thielen, you're starting Chuba, maybe Chark, maybe Mingo, but otherwise that's about it. We're probably trying to stay away from Panthers if we can help it. Chicago Bears, they ruled out Travis Homer, Roschon Johnson, and Khalil Herbert today. So, man, they're down to Deonta Foreman at running back. So if you're watching this, go check your waiver wire and see if Deonta Foreman's still available. I think he's a plug-and-play RB2 this weekend. He's going to get upwards of 15 touches. And against the Vikings, I don't hate the matchup. I think it's again, they have no RB2 behind Roschon. They're going to call up somebody or maybe use some fullbacks. So Herbert, they did place on IR. So he's out for the next 4 games, meaning Roschon Johnson, when he comes back next week, he's going to be in the RB2 discussion, and we'll see how Foreman does. But for now, Foreman needs to be added, and hopefully Roschon's stashed. Otherwise, everybody else looks fine here. Cole Kmet practiced in full today. We're waiting to see some offensive line situations, but overall, it's more the running backs there for Chicago. Moving into Cincinnati, Joe Burrow's not on the injury report, so that's good news here. The only other thing for fantasy, and really the only guy on offense that's in question here is T. Higgins. He was limited on Wednesday, Thursday. Full practice today. I think he's going to play. So if you have T. Higgins, this is a good sign, good development here. Hopefully he can make it, and it's a really good matchup going up against Seattle. So we'll monitor that report. Hopefully we get a late Saturday night text or something from Schefter saying that he's going to play. The Cleveland Browns, man, not looking good for them. They ruled out Joe Bitonio. They ruled out Cedric Tillman. They ruled out Deshaun Watson. So hosting San Francisco 49ers, if you guys play in loser pools, this is a good week to take the Browns. It doesn't look good for them. Jerome Ford's going to play. David Njoku looks like he got a limited practice in today. We're still, he's got the face burns and the hand burns, but I think he's trending towards playing. We'll have to watch that. But otherwise, PJ Walker's the quarterback here. Not super excited about Jerome Ford, Amari Cooper. If you guys have questions on these guys, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, yeah, start your 49ers defense. Dallas Cowboys playing Monday Night Football. I'm not quite sure what we got here. We got offensively, they look fine. They got some guys ruled out here at Van Der Esch on defense. They have a couple guys questionable here, one guy doubtful. But the fantasy offense is pretty straightforward. Tony Pollard's practicing in full. The offensive line practicing in full today. So this looks good for Dallas. I think Dak Prescott and the Cowboys kind of rebound. The Chargers defense has been pretty leaky and giving up a lot of fantasy points here. So I think you're starting Dak, Tony, CeeDee Lamb, maybe Ferguson, and maybe Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup if you're deep and need some help there. So Cowboys a little bit hurt on defense, but we'll see if that offense can get it turned around against the Chargers. Broncos played last night. They didn't really play well. The Lions got hit. They ruled out 6 guys tonight. Placed another on IR here, but Brian Branch is out, Jahmyr Gibbs is out, Jonah Jackson's out, Zonovan Knight out, James Mitchell, Emmanuel Mosley. This is not looking good for Detroit here. With no Gibbs, David Montgomery's a top 5 back this weekend. I think if you need someone in a desperate situation, Craig Reynolds could be a guy that you stash over the weekend, or if you need an emergency RB2, I'm fine with him. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like he's going to play full practices the last 2 days. And the guy we're watching, he popped up on the injury report yesterday. That's Sam Laporta. He did not practice with a calf injury. He said he hurt it last week, Sunday, and it popped up again on Thursday. And now he's limited on Friday. Chance to play, but they might just end up holding him out here. I'm not quite sure. So we're waiting on Sam Laporta news. Otherwise, Jared Goff, probably not the best start in QB1 leagues. I think it's really Amon-Ra St. Brown and David Montgomery that I'm locked in my lineups this weekend. Moving on to Green Bay. They're on bye. The Houston Texans hosting I believe they're hosting the Saints, right? Let's see. Everybody's in full here. Nobody ruled out. This looks really good here. The offensive line practicing in full. You'd love to see that. This is probably the healthiest we've seen the Texans. Now, they're going to rule out Tank Dell. He's the one guy that I'm confident is not going to play. He has a concussion. They're going to keep him out. I think they have a bye next week too, so we'll see him in week 8. But otherwise, start Dameon Pierce still. Start Nico Collins, maybe Dalton Schultz, even though the Saints are really good against, tight ends, and then maybe CJ Stroud. And then keep an eye on Robert Woods. If no Tank Dell, Robert Woods should be busy. The Colts looking relatively okay. They did rule out an offensive lineman here. We got another offensive lineman questionable, so maybe not so much, actually. Offensive line going to be a little bit dinged up here. But for fantasy offenses, continue starting Zach Moss. Start Jonathan Taylor if you have him as an RB2 flex. Pittman and Downs deserve to be started as well. And then maybe Gardner Minshew if you need someone in a little bit deeper league or a super flex league. Jacksonville, they're going to be the Sunday early game in London against the Ravens. No, that's not right. Jacksonville plays a regular game this weekend. But they already ruled out cornerback, Zay Jones, and their offensive guard here. A couple other guys put on IR. For fantasy, I think this is pretty simple. You're still starting Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Kirk, and Ridley, and then probably Evan Ingram. We'll see if Zay Jones can finally get back healthy next week, but continue to start Christian Kirk. Kansas City, they played last night. Looked pretty good doing so. The Chargers, again, they play Monday night against the Cowboys here. We got a couple guys questionable, all on defense. So the fantasy offense, Austin Eckler is going to be back. Justin Herbert's fine. Derwin James looks fine. Everything looks good here. So Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, maybe play Josh Palmer in this one. Let's go to the Rams. Rams I think they're hosting the Cardinals. Nobody ruled out, so that's good news here. For offense, they got a couple questionable guys on offensive line. Otherwise, yeah, you're starting Stafford for sure in Superflex leagues. I also think he can be your streamer in a 1 QB league. Like, I'd rather play Stafford over Jared Goff this weekend. I'd rather play Stafford over Stroud, stuff like that. So start Cooper Kupp, start Puka Nacua, start Kieran Williams, maybe even Tyler Higbee, and we'll see about Tutu Atwell. The Raiders this weekend hosting the Patriots. They did rule out Nate Hobbs, the cornerback here. Otherwise, everybody pretty much practiced in full today. It looks like Justin Herron ruled out, and Jacorian Bennett listed as questionable here. So for fantasy offense, fire him up. Jacobs, Adams, Myers, and then Jimmy Garoppolo in Superflex leagues. Miami side, we know Devon Achane placed on IR earlier this weekend. I don't think Jeff Wilson's going to play. He did get a limited practice in every day this week, but typically when you get a guy activated off IR, they're going to let him practice for a full week, not activate him for that first game back, and then we should see Jeff Wilson as soon as next weekend. But otherwise, the receivers look to be in good health here. Berrios, Tyreek Hill, I'm not worried about those guys. I think you're starting Tua, you're starting Raheem, you're starting Tyreek, you're starting Jalen Waddle, and that's probably the end of the list. I do want to see who is the RB2 for this offense behind Mostert. I think it's going to be Salvon Ahmed this weekend, maybe even Chris Brooks, the undrafted rookie there. Minnesota, good health for Minnesota. They have Kenny Nwangu, who might be back off of IR. Otherwise, Addison's good to go. Minnesota looks fine, obviously, other than Justin Jefferson. On the Patriots side, you should be starting Patriots. They have a huge list here. This list is the longest that we've seen so far. They've ruled out Demario Douglas, Matthew Judon, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Tons of questions here. Honestly, I'm not comfortable starting New England Patriots, not starting that Patriots defense. Ramondre and Zeke are like the only guys, and they're like low-end RB2 flex plays right now. New Orleans, they're headed to Houston. You got 5 guys ruled out here. So safety, Juwan Johnson, another safety, Lonnie Johnson. You have Andrews Pete, questionable concussion. He didn't practice today, which is a bad sign after practicing full. Prentice and Landon Young here. So the Saints are kind of dinged up too. Derek Carr's practicing in full. Good to see there. And same with Chris Olave. So I think for fantasy offense here, you're still starting Kamara, you're starting Olave, but after that, I have questions. Maybe Michael Thomas, maybe Derek Carr in Superflex, but that's pretty much it. Now, I mentioned the Giants earlier have one of the worst injury lists of the week here. They're going to get smoked by Buffalo. Daniel Jones ruled out. Azeez Ojulari ruled out. Matt Pert ruled out. John Michael Schmitz ruled out. Andrew Thomas. So they're missing 3 offensive linemen, maybe Evan Neal even too. He didn't practice today, which is a bad sign. So it's looking pretty bad for the Giants offensive line. I think Saquon Barkley's going to play, but you never know. He's questionable with that ankle. He's limited all week. Wan'Dale Robinson didn't practice on Wednesday as precaution, limited. Honestly, I think it's Saquon Barkley and Darren Waller. That's really the only guys I'm comfortable playing from this team. And even then, they're not great plays. The New York Jets, they're going to get the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. They've ruled 3 guys out, corner, and corner. So their defense might be dinged up. They don't have a lot of depth at the cornerback position. Sauce Gardner didn't practice Friday, questionable with an illness. So we're going to watch this. They're down almost 4 corners here, 3 for sure. But otherwise, the offense looks fine. The offensive linemen here looking okay. I think you're starting Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and that's probably it. Maybe Zach Wilson in Superflex leagues. I do want to look at Philadelphia here next. Philly's ruled out Jalen Carter, Darius Slay, and Quez Watkins. And they did rule out a couple guys here, Nakobe Dean and Justin Evans, to the IR. So Philly defense, we're going to pump the brakes. It's not the lights out defensive start that we thought. So, but otherwise, for fantasy football, you're starting the guys. You know the names: Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift. Get those guys in your lineup. But hey, I'm going to leave the door open for the Jets offense to make some noise against this dinged up defense. Steelers are on bye, no problem there. Let's look at the Seahawks. I don't know if the reports are going to be in yet, but I did see they ruled out Kobe Bryant and Artie Burns, so they're down 2 corners. So start Jamar Chase, start T. Higgins if he plays. Damian Lewis, the offensive guard's doubtful here. Another guard doubtful, Phil Haynes, and Drew Lock questionable. I'm not sure what's up with that, but Geno Smith is good after his ankle scare. DK Metcalf practiced in full. He's off the injury report. They let him rest Wednesday and Thursday, so good to go on DK Metcalf. Yeah, it feels good for the offense here. You're starting Kenneth Walker. You're starting DK Metcalf. Start Tyler Lockett. After that, that's probably end of list. You can maybe start Geno Smith, but he's more of a super flex QB2. But it's looking like this defense for Seattle might be able to take advantage of it. 49ers are pretty healthy here. They're getting Elijah Mitchell back. He's been practicing limited. We'll see if he can play. But otherwise, you know your starters from these 49ers here. Get those guys in your lineup. Tampa Bay, a little bit lengthy list as well. Nobody ruled out. Questionable with an illness, though, is Shaq Barrett. Otherwise, Levante David looks like a non-injury day off. Everybody else in full. So Tampa Bay, good to go. Mike Evans We were nervous about Mike Evans because he didn't practice Wednesday, limited Thursday, but full practice today. Mike Evans is playing. He should be in your lineups. It's a good matchup. And then Tennessee is getting Baltimore. That's the early London game. So they already ruled out Burks, linebacker and a safety here. We got a center and a defensive tackle questionable. I think for the Titans, we kind of know what's going on here. You're starting Henry, you're starting DeAndre Hopkins, and that's kind of the end of the list. I do think Tajay Spears needs to continue to be stashed, and Ryan Tannehill's only a super flex option. Let's look at the Washington Commanders, and then we'll get out of here for you guys. Let's see. They ruled out Christian Holmes, a cornerback. Otherwise, this looks good. Curtis Samuel, full practice. Not sure why he's on the report, but you're starting some Commanders this weekend. I think Sam Howell's a QB2 in Superflex. I think you're starting Brian Robinson, maybe. You're starting Terry McLaurin. You're starting Logan Thomas. And then the flex questions come with Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and maybe Antonio Gibson. But there you go. That's the main injury reports, final practice reports to get you guys ready for week number 6. Again, we're going to be doing a live player prop show looking at DraftKings props tomorrow morning. I think that's 9:30 a.m. Central Time. And then if you guys want to hang out with me on Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. Central Time, we'll hang out and go over all the relevant active, inactive news and get your lineup set. So enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good Saturday, guys. If I don't see you, take it easy. Peace.